Clangs rang out beneath the hangar lights as mechanics wrestled with a fighter jet that refused to start. Frustration filled the air, voices overlapping, tools slipping. Off to the side, a retired veteran stood quietly unseen for now. "Power on 3, Jamie called, palms black with grease. Copy, Nina answered, already crouched at an access panel. "Hold that line steady," a crewman added. "I'm reading a drop." The fighter sat stubborn and silent, nose tipped toward the open doors. Beyond the doors, the flight line shimmered dull in the November light. Pike's eyes moved once across the jet and back again, unhurried. His left hand shifted cuff, sliding just enough for a quick glint. A ring flashed under the hangar lamp, then tucked back into shadow. "Okay, try it now," Jamie said. The starter whined, thin and reluctant. A cough, a flicker, then nothing at all. "We're stuck," Nina muttered, leaning back on her heels. "Yeah," Jamie snapped. "Thanks for the update." Pike stepped closer to the yellow line and stopped. "Watch your ground cable," he said, voice level. Jamie glanced up. "We got it, sir. It's not our first rodeo." Nina nudged the cable with her boot. "Clear." That wasn't it. "Check your vent line for a pinch," Pike offered. Jamie shook his head. "We checked it twice." The radio gave a dry hiss. Someone twisted the volume down. A rolling cart squeaked by, leaving a ghost of solvent scent. Pike kept his hands to himself, eyes tracing the intake lip. He watched the ladder sway, a loose wrench, a taped sensor. He did not hurry the crew with more than those 2 lines. "Power again," Jamie called. "On 3. 1, 2, 3. The starter rose, hopeful, then sagged into silence. "Great," Jamie said. "We're still stuck." "Maybe your ground unit is undervolting," Pike said softly. "Old timer, we swapped units already." Jamie yanked a rag from his pocket and wiped his hands. "No offense," he added, "but the manual's right here." "The manual's fine," Pike said. "So is your patience." Nina eyed the panel. "We could bleed the line again." "We bled it," Jamie said. "Twice since breakfast." "Smell that?" Pike asked. Jamie frowned. "Smell what cold fuel?" Pike said. "Not raw." "Cold." Nina sniffed, uncertain. "I smell rubber and coffee." "Check the pressure in the service cart," Pike said. Jamie rolled his eyes. "We did. Pressure's nominal." "Nominal where?" Pike asked. "At the gauge or the line gauge?" Nina answered. Pike nodded once. "Gauge tells you a story. Line tells you truth." Jamie tossed the rag onto the cart. "We're losing time." "Time isn't lost," Pike said. "It's usually hiding." "Look," Jamie said, "if you've got a certified fix, say it." Pike let his silence answer. He watched the canopy seam. He watched a tremor in a hose that shouldn't tremble. The ring flickered again as he shifted his grip on the hat. Its crest caught a brief beam and disappeared like a wink. Nina lowered her voice. "Maybe we should hear him out. Hear what Jamie said. He's speaking fortune cookie." "Try the valve at the low point," Pike said. "Burp the line." Jamie blew a breath. "Fine. Burp the line, Nina." They cracked the fitting. Air hissed thin and petulant. A bead of fuel slid down and shivered in the light. Again, Pike said. Another hiss. The hose settled, then stilled. "Okay," Jamie said. "Power on 3. 1, 2, 3. The starter's whine came up stronger. For a half second, hope. The jet gave them a blink, just a grudging heartbeat, and died. Jamie slapped the ladder. "Come on!" Nina exhaled. "Almost." Almost is a fine town, Pike said. Folks never move in. Jamie looked over, eyebrows high. You write these down, sir, some Pike said. Most are hand-me-downs. The radio crackled and coughed up a measure of oldies. Someone turned the knob. The tune stayed thin and shy. A forklift beeped 2 hangars down a low metronome. Cold air wandered in, nudging the stenciled warnings on crates. Want to call it for now? Nina asked. Reset and eat. Jamie shook his head. We don't clock out while it's winning. Machines don't win, Pike said. They wait for you to notice. Notice what Jamie asked. The small thing that isn't acting proud, Pike said. Jamie pointed his chin at the open bay. Wind's changing. We'll get grit in the intake if we keep standing here. Then we won't keep standing here, Nina said. Jamie, your call. Jamie rubbed his neck, thinking, then squared his shoulders. All right. We run the checklist from the top. Nina lifted the clipboard. Battery connected. Ground secure, Jamie said. Vent clear, Nina said, glancing at Pike. Cleared twice. Lines bled, Jamie said. Sort of thrice. Pressure nominal, Nina added. At the gauge. At the line, Pike said it listens differently. Jamie gave a half laugh. Do lines have ears now? They have a pulse, Pike said. Feel it with 2 fingers. Nina pinched the hose and waited. I feel nothing. Exactly, Pike said. Try the low valve again. Jamie sighed. Why? Because the first burp relieved pride, not pressure, Pike said. Nina cracked the fitting a hair. A sharper hiss answered. The hose relaxed like a fist let go of a key. Jamie blinked. Huh. Now Nina asked. Now Jamie said. Power on 3. The whine rose smoother, steadier, and then fell short. Not dead, but not alive either, like a held breath. Nina set the clipboard down. We're stuck. The words hung in the air and found their echo on the radio. Static traced their edges. The oldies slipped behind the buzz. Pike's gaze traveled from the intake to the service cart. His fingers eased along the brim of his hat, slow and sure. The ring winked once more and disappeared under his cuff. Old-timer Jamie said softer, now you got more of those hand-me-downs, Plenty Pike said. Then why aren't you, Jamie started, then swallowed it. Never mind. We'll get it. We have to. Nina looked at Pike. Any harm in telling us one more harm's rare, Pike said. Pride's common. Jamie chuckled without humor. So's cold coffee. Top off and come back, Pike said. Hands think better warm. Nina tapped the clipboard. 10 minutes. 5, Jamie said. We're behind as is. Pike stepped back from the yellow line and let them pass. The draft followed them out, carrying the smear of fuel scent. He stayed where he stood, eyes on the stubborn nose. He listened to the hangar breathe slow and tired and patient. The jet sat quiet as a closed book offering no answer. The radio faded, then settled to a whisper behind the carts. Pike adjusted his cuff, the lamp's glare falling off the ring. He said nothing to the empty air and the cooling metal. He watched a ripple of shadow move across the intake lip. The fighter stayed silent. So did he. The November sun slanted through the hangar doors, dragging a pale stripe across the concrete. Dust motes floated through the air, disturbed every time a tool clanged onto metal. The fighter sat stubborn, a statue of aluminum and frustration. Jamie ducked under the wing clipboard tucked against his chest. Checklist says fuel lines clear. Again. Nina followed, wiping her hands on a rag already stained dark. Feels like we're chasing our own tails. From his quiet spot near the toolbox, Graham Pike adjusted his gloves. The leather creaked, and for a moment the overhead lamp caught his ring. The insignia blinked and vanished when he tugged the glove cuff higher. Old-timers' jewelry keeps shining, Jamie muttered loud enough to carry. Maybe that's what's shorting the system. Nina shrugged. Better than the gauges we've been trusting. Jamie shot her a look. Don't start siding with him. Pike's voice cut soft through the echo. Check the low valve again. Just once more. Jamie groaned. We did that yesterday and again this morning. Once more won't hurt, Pike said. Hurts my patience, Jamie answered. He squatted, tapped the valve with the wrench. See tight as church coffers. Nina crouched beside him. We could crack it a hair. Hear if it hisses. Jamie rolled his eyes. Fine. Half turn. He loosened it, and a sharp hiss answered a thread of vapor sliding out. Nina leaned back. Pressure was sitting high. The starter whine followed brighter this time. The jet coughed, shuddered then, flickered to life. For a heartbeat, lights blinked across the console. Jamie's face lit. There, we've got it. The engine sighed once and died flat. Silence again. Relief evaporated. Nina exhaled through her teeth. So close. Jamie slapped the wrench onto the floor. The clang ricocheted like a gunshot. It's worse than before. Pike's gaze moved to the trembling hose. Not worse. Just honest. Jamie stood pointing the wrench. You got a fix, say it plain. Otherwise stop haunting my hangar. I said the line still holds pride, Pike replied. It hasn't told you the truth yet. Nina tilted her head. What does that even mean? Jamie barked a laugh. Means he likes riddles. Across the bay, a forklift beeped its retreat. The radio coughed up static, then a fragment of oldies. A letter carrier wheeled in from the adjoining office, balancing envelopes. He handed Nina a bundle. Post office run, the man said. Might as well keep you grounded folks busy. He winked, then left the smell of paper and ink lingering. Nina flipped through the envelopes, chuckling. Bills, bills. Oh, Jamie, you've got a letter from your cousin. Jamie stuffed it into his pocket. Later. We're buried enough. He turned back to Pike. So Prophet, what now? Listen to the hose, Pike said. Not the gauge. Nina pressed 2 fingers to the line. Feels steady now. Jamie grunted. Steady dead. That doesn't help. Try the pump sequence backwards, Pike offered. Backwards, Jamie asked. That's not in the manual. Manuals don't know the weather, Pike said. Cold mornings fool warm gauges. Nina looked thoughtful. Temperature did dip last night. Jamie set his jaw. You want us written up? The captain's already breathing down my neck. The jet doesn't care about your neck, Pike said evenly. Nina smiled faintly. He's not wrong. Jamie's shoulders sagged. Fine. We'll humor the oracle. Reverse sequence, then. They worked the pumps. The system hummed, lights flickered again, a hopeful glow spreading across the board. See, Nina said. It's working. A dull pop cut her off. The lights blinked out. Silence heavier than before pressed down on the bay. Jamie threw the rag onto the cart. Perfect. We're back to nothing. That wasn't nothing, Pike said. That was the jet telling you where not to trust it. Jamie turned on him. You talk like it's alive. It's alive enough to humble you, Pike said. Nina leaned against the ladder, tired smile on her lips. So much for almost. Jamie barked, almost doesn't get us airborne. From the corner, Pike bent, pulling a small notebook from his coat. His pencil scratched across the page, slow and deliberate. Jamie sneered. What writing poetry about our failures? Nina watched the pencil move. Or maybe he's keeping score. Pike didn't look up. The ring caught light once more as his hand moved. He made a quiet note, closed the book, and slipped it back into his coat. The hangar held its breath with him. The jet loomed silent, the echo of that brief flicker still haunting the crew. Jamie shook his head. We're wasting daylight. Back to the checklist. Nina sighed, picking up the rag again. Fine. But for the record, I liked that flicker. Pike's eyes stayed on the nose of the jet, steady calm. He said nothing. Only the scratch of his pencil lingered in memory as the crew dismissed him again. Climax, Cliff crew, dismiss him again. Pike scribbles note. The hangar smelled of cold metal and solvent, a thin ribbon of oldies spilling from a radio half buried under rags. Fluorescence hummed. The fighter sat with its patience worn smooth. Graham Pike wiped his hands on a shop towel. As the cloth slid over his knuckles, his ring flashed just a brief flare under the lamp and went dim again. Jamie glanced up. You know that ring keeps photobombing our misery. Nina crouched by the service cart, tried a small smile. Maybe it's good luck. Luck's on break, Jamie said. And we're out of breaks. Pike nodded toward the diagnostics tablet on the office desk, just inside the bay. May I? Jamie hesitated. Nina answered for him. Go ahead. Pike set the towel down, moved to the desk, and tapped through pages of numbers. Your pressure curve peaks early, then fades. Voltage at the cart says healthy. At the line it says tired. Jamie leaned on the desk with both hands. Meaning the story on paper isn't the story in the hose, Pike said. The manual says we're within tolerance, Jamie fired back. Tolerances make room for pride, Pike replied. Patterns catch it leaving. Nina squinted at the curve. So what's the pattern? See this ripple? Pike traced a shallow wave. It lines up with your attempts. Each time you cycle, the baseline drops a hair. The system is pretending to be ready. Jamie frowned. Pretending machines don't lie, Pike said. People read them wrong. From the hangar doors, bootsteps approached with a crisp tempo. Captain Colton Avery filled the threshold, jacket zipped, jaw set. What's the status? Avery asked, eyes already searching for a checklist. Jamie straightened. Sir, we've cycled 3 times. We're close. Close isn't airworthy, Avery said. Where's the manual? Nina held it up. Here. Avery took it, flipped pages with impatient fingers, and set it down again. His gaze landed on Pike. And you are still here. Pike's voice stayed level. Yes, Captain. Avery tapped the top of the desk. We follow procedures. No improvisation. No folk wisdom. If it isn't in the book, it isn't in the bay. Jamie shot Pike a quick, apologetic look. By the book, then. Pike met Avery's stare without heat. The book is fine, Captain. The sequence is wrong for this morning. Avery's eyebrow climbed. Wrong cold air, Pike said. Warm gauge. Backwards pump order stabilizes the low point. Avery gave a thin smile. Backwards procedures are still backwards. We will proceed as written. Nina kept her tone careful. Sir, we tried standard sequence twice. We got a brief flicker. Flickers are not starts, Avery said. Reset. Begin again. Pike slid the tablet toward Jamie. Freeze the graph when it climbs. If it dips before the command, stop and bleed. Avery's voice cut like a whistle. Mr. Pike, I respect your experience, but you are not the chief of this bay. No, sir, Pike said. Then stand back, Avery said. Jamie Nina proved the book right. Jamie swallowed. Yes, sir. They moved with weary precision. Nina at the panel, Jamie at the cart, Avery at the edge of the yellow line, arms folded like a barricade. Battery connected, Nina called. Ground secure, Jamie answered. Vent clear. Lines bled. Pressure nominal. Jamie read. Command on, Nina said. The starter rose, keening bright. The curve on the tablet climbed, promising. Jamie's face lifted with it. Here we go, he breathed. A soft rattle shivered through the hose. Pike saw it, felt it through the floor. The curve twitched before the command finished. Stop, Pike said. Avery's head snapped around. We are mid-sequence. It's dropping early, Pike said. Bleed now or it will stall. Avery's voice cooled another degree. Proceed. Nina's eyes flicked between them. Sir. Proceed, Avery repeated. Nina obeyed. The curve plateaued, then sagged unwilling. The whine faded into a sigh and died. Jamie closed his eyes. So close. Relief washed through and out again, leaving a chill. Nina let out a breath, half laugh, half ache. False alarm. Avery set the manual down as if it had weight. Again. Jamie looked at Pike. We should try again, Avery said firmer. Pike kept his tone steady, not louder than the radio. Captain, may I show them a safe variation? No, Avery said. Try again. The words hung like a clap. The radio coughed and settled into another old refrain. Somewhere down the row, a forklift beeped in slow apology. Jamie reset the cart. Battery connected. Ground secure. Vent clear. Lines bled. Pressure nominal. They ran the sequence once more. The jet offered the same brief glow, the same thin pulse, then let it slip through their fingers. Jamie set his jaw until the muscles showed. It hates us. Machines don't hate, Pike said. They wait. Avery drew himself taller. We are not here to trade proverbs. Understood, Pike said. Nina looked from the tablet to the hose. He's right about the dip, sir. It keeps sliding a breath early. Avery held out a hand. Tablet. Nina passed it to him. He examined the graph, eyes narrowing, then closing the page. We proceed by the book. Pike's ring caught the light as he gathered the towel from the desk. The flash found Nina's eye. She hesitated, then spoke carefully. Sir, permission to try the reverse order once. If it fails, we go back. Avery's reply came without pause. Denied. Jamie lifted his hands, palms up. Captain, with respect, we're burning time. We're demonstrating discipline, Avery said. Again. Nina's sigh had edges. Battery connected. Ground secure. Vent clear. Lines bled. Pressure nominal. They moved like a metronome, each click more tired than the last. The whine rose, the numbers climbed another false horizon. It faded the same way as if the jet were teasing, then withdrawing its hand. Pike rested the towel across his shoulder. Captain, the baseline is sagging because the low point is holding air. Reverse the prime. It will settle. Avery's gaze sharpened. You are not in command here. I know, Pike said. Then you will stop directing my crew, Avery said. They're your crew, Pike answered. The pattern is everyone's. Jamie stared at the dark console. I hate that he's making sense. Nina's voice went quiet. So do I. Avery picked up the manual again, knuckles pale. We will do this correctly. From outside, a buzzer pealed through the afternoon, sharp and insistent. The office phone rang once, twice, then the line from dispatch cut through the radio like a blade. Maintenance bay, the voice snapped. Status on the fighter. We need a start. Now. Avery stepped to the handset. We're prepping. Not prepping, dispatch said. We need it. Now. Jamie's mouth went dry. They want it live. Nina looked at the hose, then at Pike, then at the captain. Sir Avery's jaw set. We will start it by the book. Pike's eyes went to the curve, the hose, the air shimmering near the open doors. He said nothing else. The buzzer kept ringing, urgent, steady, unblinking, until the silence in the hangar felt loud enough to break. Jamie swallowed. Captain. What's the call? Avery's answer came like a stamp. Reset. Checklist. We start it now. The alarm cut again, longer this time, and washed the bay in red. The bay lights buzzed overhead, their glow pale against the late afternoon dim, pressing in from the open doors. The smell of metal and cold fuel still hung sharp. A hush crept through the hangar, not because the work was done, but because no one trusted their own voices anymore. Graham Pike stepped forward, slow and measured. His gloves dangled from one hand, and in the other he cradled something small but heavy with memory. The crew's chatter thinned to nothing. Even the old radio, crackling faintly with static, seemed to fade. Pike lifted his left hand, deliberate as a ceremony. The overhead lamp caught the squadron ring on his finger, striking the insignia until it glimmered like a metal fresh from polish. Nina's whisper broke the silence. That ring. Jamie swallowed hard. It's real. That's the squadron mark. Captain Avery's arms folded tighter. Jewelry doesn't fix engines. Pike's tone came level, low enough to calm the room, but strong enough to steady hands. No. But memory does. And precision. He raised his chin. You want this fighter running, you follow exactly. The room stilled. Even Avery hesitated. Jamie looked at the ring again, then back at Pike. Say it. What do we do? Reverse sequence, Pike said. Bleed low first, prime high second. Watch the hose. Don't watch the gauge. Gauge lies when the air is cold. Avery bristled. That's against procedure. Captain Pike cut gently. You've tried the book 3 times. It failed you. Try the truth once. The silence thickened. Crew eyes flicked between their captain and the veteran, waiting for the weight to fall one way. Avery's jaw tightened. His pride leaned toward refusal, but his men's faces begged for something more than another wasted cycle. He gave a sharp nod. Fine. Once. If it fails, it's on you. Pike inclined his head, accepting. Fair. He pointed. Nina hand on the valve. Jamie prime cart ready. On my mark. The crew scrambled into place, every motion slower, now reverent. Battery connected, Pike said. Nina confirmed. Connected. Ground secure. Jamie echoed. Secure. Vent clear. Clear. Low bleed, crack it. 2 breaths only. Nina twisted a hiss, filling the bay. Air thinned, then settled. "Close it," Pike said. Closed. Now prime high. Slow count to 3. Jamie turned the knob carefully. Pressure steadied, no twitch, no rattle. Hold, Pike said, eyes fixed on the hose, trembling faintly like a plucked string. There. Now ignition. Nina's hand hovered. You sure the ring caught the light again as Pike lifted his finger steady as a compass needle. Ignition. Nina pressed. The starter whined. For a breath the bay waited. The whine rose steadier, deeper, climbing instead of dying. The hose smoothed the graph on the tablet, leveled into a clean line. The fighter shuddered, once coughed, and then the engine roared alive. A rush of sound filled the bay, hot and victorious. Dust lifted from the floor. Papers scattered from the desk. The metallic chime of the ring was lost in the thunder of combustion. Jamie whooped, voice drowned but face glowing. Nina clapped a hand to her mouth, eyes wide. The roar softened into a steady hum, the sound of success long overdue. Pike lowered his hand, the ring dimming again in the overhead light. Avery stared, pride fighting awe in his eyes. His voice cracked against the noise. Impossible. Pike shook his head. No. Just unnoticed. The crew stood, frozen tools hanging from limp hands, eyes fixed on him. The silence within them was louder than the jet. Avery's throat worked. He finally turned, voice carrying to the men. Secure the bay, he's right. Jamie let out a long breath. Nina whispered, We're airborne again. For the first time all day, the hangar felt warm. The hum filled every corner, but the real weight sat on the glint of a ring and the quiet authority of the man who had lifted it. Climax settled like a cresting wave, the jet alive, every eye on Graham Pike, the quiet veteran who had just proven the impossible true. Cliffjet starts. Eyes on Pike. Silence, then awe. The engine held a calm, confident hum, the kind that filled the ribcage and steadied the jaw. Warm air curled across the concrete, lifting the chemical tang into something almost sweet. The radio in the corner had gone quiet on its own, as if learning the room. On the work table, the schematic lay flat under a strip of painter's tape. Graham Pike set his squadron ring on the paper like a paperweight insignia face up, catching the light. The crew formed a loose semicircle, sleeves pushed, faces scrubbed by relief. Let's lock the lesson, Pike said, voice even. What we did and why. Jamie nodded, jaw unclenched at last. Reverse sequence. Bleed low, prime high. Watch the hose, not the gauge. And slow count on the prime, Nina added. Let pressure meet you, not outrun you. Pike pointed to the sketch he'd penciled beside the fuel tract. Cold air makes warm gauges brag. A bragging gauge will get you scolded. Hoses don't brag. They tell the truth with tremor. A faint smile tugged at Jamie's mouth. Hoses and pride. I'll remember both. Bootsteps approached. Captain Avery stopped at the table, eyes on the ring before he met Pike's gaze. The hangar hum put a gentle pressure under every word. Mr. Pike, Avery said, careful with each syllable, I misjudged you. Jamie glanced at Nina and then looked back down, letting the sentence breathe. Pike didn't rush him. It happens. Avery's mouth tightened, not in anger this time, in effort. And I misjudged my crew by holding the book tighter than their hands. He turned to Jamie and Nina. You did well. You also pressed when you believed we needed to press. That's the work. Jamie swallowed. Thank you, sir. Nina exhaled as if lowering a weight. We all wanted the same thing. Pike tapped the margin. We'll run a test cycle to prove repeatability, then log a note in the manual's pocket for cold mornings. Underlined hose tells truth. Avery nodded. Do it. They dispersed with a new coherence, positions taken without clatter. Jamie at the cart, Nina at the panel, 2 more at safety cones. The hum shifted to a brighter tone as the system accepted the plan. Battery connected, Nina called. Ground secure, Jamie answered. Vent clear. Lines bled. Prime high, slow count, Jamie said. 1, 2, 3. Pike watched the hose, not the graph. It smoothed like a wrinkle pressed by a warm iron. Ignition, Nina said. The starter climbed, not straining now, but stepping up like a choir finding its pitch. The engine settled into that same confident hum, slightly higher than before, perfectly repeatable. Somewhere in the rafters, a loose panel stopped rattling, as if reassured. Jamie grinned, eyes bright again. There it is. Nina's shoulders finally dropped. There it is. Avery let the moment stand without commentary. Then he laid his hand on the table near the ring palm, down a private gesture. Log it, he said quietly, and log my error with it. Pike inclined his head. Yes, Captain. They cut the engine to idle, then to silence. The hangar exhaled. For a breath, no one spoke. It wasn't fear now. It was a chosen quiet, a small ritual that fit the room like good lighting. Jamie broke it first, softer than before. Diner. We owe 2 coffees and a pie. Make it 3, Nina said, glancing at the ring. 1 for the paperweight. Avery's mouth tipped. I'll join. I have a tab with humility on it. The diner sat 2 blocks from the base gate windows, fogged with evening, and the friar's kumquat glow. The bell over the door made a tired ring, the kind that says regulars, only all are regulars. Oldies played on low from a radio near the pie case. Booth vinyl squeaked. Cups chimed. They took a corner booth. Pike slid in last, and the waitress set menus with muscle memory. What'll it be? She asked. Refill for everybody, Jamie said. And pie. Dealer's choice. Cherry for loudmouths, she said, pouring. Apple for the polite. Apple then, Jamie said, grinning sheepish. Pike warmed his fingers around the cup. The coffee smelled bitter and steady. Across from him, Avery's jacket creaked as he settled. The captain set his hat on the seat beside him and kept his eyes on the steam. Mr. Pike Avery began, then paused and pushed the words out, honest, not polished. Thank you. Pike lifted his cup in a small salute. You trusted when it counted. That fixes more than engines. Nina stirred a packet of sugar spoon clicking ceramic. Can I ask about the ring? Pike rotated the band so the insignia faced her. Old Squadron, old brass. It doesn't make the work better. It reminds me to do it bravely. Jamie glanced at Avery and back. It made us quiet. That was you, Pike said. Choosing quiet at the right time is skill. The waitress returned with plates, apple, cherry, and a shaker of nutmeg. The radio found a harmony line and lifted a little. Outside traffic sighed like a soft cymbal. Avery cleared his throat. After we eat, I want a write-up in the manual pocket. And I want a brief at morning muster. Jamie, Nina, you'll teach what you learned. Jamie blinked. We teach. You understood the tremor in the hose, Avery said. That makes you the teacher. Nina smiled, the kind you keep. Yes, sir. Pike took a slow bite of pie and nodded as if time itself had found its footing. He could feel the room adjusting to a better center. When the bill came, Jamie reached for it, and Pike's hand landed on top first. "On me," Pike said. "On us," Jamie countered, already sliding a tip under the check. Nina tucked a second bill beneath Pike's cup, a quiet triangle of gratitude. The waitress didn't look, but she would find it, and the ritual would hold. They stepped back into the cooling evening. The neon flickered, then steadied. At the curb, conversation slowed and thinned to the kind of silence that doesn't need filling. "Back to the hangar," Jamie asked. "Back to the hangar," Avery said. "We log the fix while the lesson is warm." They walked as a loose group boots, scuffing in rhythm. From a church hall down the block, a choir tested a chord. It rose and hung a simple triad that made the streetlights feel brighter. Inside the bay again, the schematic waited on the table. Pike set the ring where it had been a small anchor for the paper's corners. Jamie and Nina leaned in with pens. Avery stood at their shoulders, not over them this time, just near. "Title it," Pike said. "Cold Morning Protocol." Jamie wrote the words in a neat block and underlined them twice. Nina drafted the sequence, adding the note about watching tremor over gauge. Avery initialed the bottom margin squared and deliberate. No one spoke for a beat. The engine was still off, but some sound remained, the lingering choir chord in memory, the imagined hum of a confident start. Jamie picked up 2 to-go cups the diner had packed at the last moment. He turned and pressed one into Pike's hand without a word. Nina did the same with a third, setting it beside the ring on the schematic, then nudging it closer to him. She met his eyes and didn't speak either. Respect had found its shape, and it was quiet. The library foyer smelled like paper and lemon polish, with a drift of cool air from the front doors. Afternoon light came through high windows and squared itself on the floor like well-behaved children. A folding easel stood near the circulation desk, draped with a small cloth. Beside it, a shallow oak shadow box waited on a brass stand, glass clean enough to pass inspection. Graham Pike paused just inside the doorway, hat in hand. He had shaved as if tidiness might help the day carry its own weight. Jamie and Nina stood together near the end cap of biographies, whispering the way folks do when a place asks for quiet. Captain Avery spoke with the librarian, white hair, pinned back cardigan buttoned wrong by one, and nodded as she pointed to the guest book. "Mr. Pike," the librarian asked, gentle. "We'll keep it simple." "Simple holds," Pike said. The choir from the church hall across the street had sent 3 voices and a portable keyboard. They finished a brief warm-up, soft vowels echoing under the balcony. A teenager with a messenger bag slipped in and took a place near the back, eyes-curious phone asleep in her palm. Avery stepped to the easel. "Neighbors and friends," he said, voice pitched to respect the room. "We're here to mark a small thing that meant more than its size." He lifted the cloth. Under it a plaque shone with plain lettering. No flourish, no rank, listing only the kind of words you can remember without trying. Cold Morning Protocol. When gauges brag, listen to the hose. Shared wisely, kept humbly. Beside the plaque in the shadow box, Pike's Squadron ring rested on a navy felt square. The insignia didn't need explanation. The glass caught the skylight and sent it back in a thin, steady line. Nina's breath hitched, not sad, more like a finally. Jamie's hands found the seam of his jacket pockets and stayed there still. Avery looked to Pike. "We asked him to speak," he said, "and he asked us not to." Pike gave a small nod. "I don't carry speeches. Then we'll carry the thanks." Avery answered. The choir leader set a quiet chord, nothing grand, just 3 notes that found the room and settled in it. The trio sang a simple verse about steady hands and borrowed light. People did not clap. The song let itself end like a breath you hold, then release without sound. The librarian signed the guest book first, her handwriting tidy as a recipe card. Jamie and Nina followed, adding short lines, not looking up as they wrote. A pair of airmen on weekend pass wrote initials and nothing else. The teenager from the back approached, read the plaque twice, then met Pike halfway, with the stiff courage of someone learning to greet their elders. "Sir," she said, "I help in the makerspace. We fix broken headphones and blender blades. Sometimes the book is wrong there, too." Pike's smile was close to a wince, not of pain, just of humility doing its job. "Then you already know the lesson." "Could I show the younger ones this?" she asked, glance flicking toward the ring behind glass. "It's meant for that," Pike said. She nodded, relief loosening her shoulders. "Thank you." Jamie approached with 2 foam cups from the lobby machine. "It's not diner coffee," he said, "but it's warm." Pike took one. "Warm is the best part." Nina stood in front of the shadow box a moment longer. "Looks right," she said softly. "It belongs to the work now," Avery replied. "Sir," Jamie said, "are we?" He stopped, tried again. "Are we doing the silence thing?" Avery looked around the foyer. "We are." He set his cup down. "Just a moment." They faced the plaque, the ring, the light on glass. The choir didn't sing. The keyboard didn't touch a key. The moment arrived and took its place without asking permission. No one timed it. When it had said enough, the whisper of pages turning somewhere in the stacks sounded like a benediction. Outside, the church hall opened its doors for evening rehearsal. A breeze carried the hymn across the street and into the library as if the song were following everyone out. Pike signed the guest book last. His name small, the date steady. On the sidewalk, Nina tucked her scarf, cheeks pink from the air. "We could walk you home," she said. "I know the way," Pike answered. "Course you do," Jamie said. "We'll tag along anyway." They went slow past the post office, where the last of the day's mail rode the belt with a rubbery thrum. A porch swing creaked 2 houses over, a family settling into the hour before supper, someone tapping a jar lid, someone else turning the dial on an old radio until the station held. An AM oldie rose from the static and swam across the block. Pike's porch sat close to the sidewalk. Paint needed considering. The swing knew all the town's weather and complained about none of it. He set his hat on the rail and sat, feet finding the memory of a worn groove. Jamie handed him a small paper bag. "From the diner," he said. "Apple. We thought, well..." "Apple holds," Pike said. Nina leaned on the post. "If you want company, sometimes we're not far." "Company's a good tool," Pike said. "Use it when it fits." Avery stopped at the bottom step. "We'll keep teaching the protocol," he said, "and we'll keep writing our own when the morning calls for it." Pike nodded once, slow. "That's all of it." They didn't fill the air after that. The hymn crossed from the church hall and found the porch. It braided with the radio's chorus and made something that felt like a street remembering itself. Jamie checked his watch and felt foolish for doing it. "We should let you rest. You'll hear me snore from the bass if I do," Pike said. Nina laughed under her breath. "We'll risk it." They took 2 steps back and then didn't quite leave. Jamie lifted a hand. Nina touched the rail. Avery gave a small, unarmed salute, 2 fingers, not a performance, and turned to walk. They went quieter than they came. Pike leaned back until the swing found its honest rhythm. The apple bag crinkled in his lap. The radio down the block landed on a station and stuck the way good choices do. Across the street, the choir found its chord and held it long enough to make the light feel warmer. He didn't rehearse speeches in his head or catalog the day. He let the porch do the talking wood, under paint chain, on hook, a view of the street lived in enough to be trusted. He looked toward town once, toward the library, and its glass, and gave it the smallest nod, as if to say the work had a home now that wasn't his pocket. The hymn drifted, the swing creaked, the evening answered with the easy promise of another morning. He spoke once, not loud, not for anyone but the air. Silence can salute louder than words. The radio caught a chorus and carried it past his porch, past the church hall, and along the block, until it sounded like the town itself humming content, steady and sure. The town remembered in quiet gestures the steam of a diner cup, the hush in a library foyer, the creak of a porch swing at dusk. Respect had grown from doubt proven when action steadied chaos and justice followed, and it left behind more than an engine's hum. It left a ritual of silence that neighbors now share. Kindness offered without return is like a lamp in a winter window, its glow steady enough to guide even strangers home. On display rests a simple ring in worn metal, its presence less about shine than about memory, reminding the young that wisdom is earned in listening. A plaque beneath it ensures the story outlives voices and people stand a little straighter now.